Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 24, and it's a conversation that I recently had with Emily Wardrop. She is an advanced certified life coach who is passionate about helping all moms believe that they are a good mom inherently. She also helps moms of young kids drop the mom guilt and drop the power struggle wars to create more peace in their parenting through love, respect, agency, and connection. So here we go. All right, welcome to the episode. We are going to be visiting with Emily Wardrop, and I'm so excited to have her on here with me as we discuss life coaching and her experience around it and what led her to it. And I'm going to let her introduce herself. So Emily,
Okay.
take it away.
Thanks, Jill. So yes, I'm Emily Wardrop from Drop the War Life Coaching. It's a play on my name. We were just talking about that before we hit record, so I'm still laughing. Okay, so what war are we dropping, you ask? So I coach moms of young kids, and so we drop the power struggle war. We drop the mom guilt, do a lot of dropping mom guilt. We drop the war in our own head between our higher and lower brains. So basically there's a lot of wars to drop. And so it's just kind of a fun play on my name. But yes, so I coach moms of young kids because I still am in the thick of it myself. My oldest is 8, my youngest is 9 months. For a month there, it was fun to say my oldest is 8, my youngest is 8 months. But anyway, I got into life coaching because, well, I always wanted to be a mom, but by the time I finally was, it was like my dream, right? But it didn't feel like a dream. Most days it kind of felt like a nightmare. And I knew all about kids. I was the fun aunt for a decade, before I had any kids, and I babysat forever before that. But having your own all day and all night, every single day is definitely different. So life coaching helped me so much. Just the basic knowing that my feelings came from my thoughts was like, oh,
It's
that's
like,
where feelings come from.
where has that been my whole life?
Exactly. I thought my feelings came from my newborn because he won't stop crying. And I didn't realize I had a thought about that was making me feel frustrated. I thought it was just the kids that were making me feel frustrated. So that in itself was just huge. And so I've been using life coaching tools on myself, obviously as a mom, to try to keep it together. And so then the next step is always, let's contribute a little bit instead of just consuming all the time.
Yeah.
And so I thought I would be a life coach someday, like when my oldest was in kindergarten. No, that's when I ended up doing it.
Yeah.
I thought I would do it when my youngest was in kindergarten, but my youngest was not even born yet. And all of a sudden I'm in coach training when my oldest was in school. And it was during COVID, so he was not in school anymore. And then we got a couple type 1 diabetes diagnosis in the process. So there's been a lot of things definitely in the thick of it. So it's a very, part-time business right now, but I just love helping the moms that are struggling because, of course I love the moms and I want to help them, but for the kids, like the kids. Oh, Jill, should I just jump in? So This is my message. I want all the moms to believe that they are a good mom, because what we do, what we make it mean, all the stuff going on all day, how our kids are behaving, how we're feeling, whatever it is in our circumstance line. I don't know if your listeners know too much about the model, but whatever it is, we're making it mean that we're a terrible mom. Why do we do this? We need to stop doing this.
Yes.
You are not a terrible mom.
Yeah.
No matter how old your kids are.
It's like like I just think that everyone I know at one time or another believes they were a terrible mother.
Yeah.
Right? Like all question our what we did, if we chose the right thing or we acted the right way, or we blame ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that is why I'm a life coach to help everybody stop doing that. I like to coach moms of young kids because I hear people get, all the time they say, oh, I wish I had these tools when my kids were little. So I just don't want people to say that anymore. I want them to have these tools while their kids are little. But if it's too late for that, you're always a mom, whether you're a grandma now too, a great grandma, you're still a mom. And that role does not go away. And the mom guilt is still there, whether it's from things you did or didn't do when they were little or now in your role as a mom of adult children or as a grandma. It's just really important that we not make it mean lies. They're lies that we're telling ourselves. And when we know the model, we know that when we think we're a good mom, then we feel good, then we act good, and we are a good mom, right? The model is the most basic, right? And so when we make it mean that we're a terrible mom, then we feel terrible and we continue to do the things that we define as a bad mom, and we're stuck in the mud.
Yeah. I love your message. I think it's so valuable. I'm one of those moms that thought, wow, I wish I would have known this, because I did lose my temper. I was a yeller. I had expectations that if they weren't met, I would get so frustrated, and I let things control my emotional health. And so finding this has been so freeing. And again, I don't think it's too late. Like, we also learn from those times. We learn from those moments when we aren't our best.
Exactly.
That we learned a lot. I learned how I want to be because of those moments. And that ultimately, I think that's why we're here, is to learn who we want to be, right?
Yeah. And when we believe that the whole entire point of this earth life is to learn and grow and develop, then it makes sense that we didn't get some parenting manual with the scriptures, that are like canonized that say, do this, don't do that. And then you'll be a good mom. There's no perfect defining anything. We can make that up ourselves. So after we find coaching, then we add another layer of guilt and shame on top, because we're like, oh no, I know how to deal with my emotions. I've learned all of this now. And so those of us who were blessed enough to find it when our kids were little, it can be a blessing and a curse. Manage our minds double time, because we are still human, and I do still yell, and I do still have all the feelings, and I am a good mom still.
I think that's such a good point, Emily, because I think for people like me, right, who do look back and go, oh, I wish I would have. But that even if you find it when your kids are little, you're still going to question yourself. You're still going to doubt yourself. You're going to still feel those things, because yes, you are human. And so it doesn't matter when we find it, we need it.
Yeah. And the other thing we teach as life coaches is a 50-50 rule, right? That we're always going to have the 50-50 human experience. We're going to feel quote unquote negative emotions and positive ones. But I'm not really jiving with the way some coaches use the 50-50 rule with parenting. Like, I'm a good mom and I'm a terrible mom. Like, that just only helped me to a point. And then I was like, no, like, that's not acceptable. I want to be a good mom more than 50% of the time. And so not until I finally started believing this is my message. So I am a good mom. Like, it's who I am inherently. We came to this earth as daughters of God. We have his DNA in us. He is good. We are good. He made us. We're good, period. Like, we are, that's who we are. But we're also in this mortal experience, in this, temporal body that's flawed, and emotions are part of the whole learning and growth and development that we need to go through. So who we are. So basically, you can think about yourself somewhere in the progress of an acorn to a mighty oak tree, right? If the oak tree is like the goal. So all of the potential is already in the acorn. But we look at that acorn and say, oh, you're such a terrible oak tree. So you are a good mom, but you are, and you are also in a process of development. And that's the point. Like, that's why we're on this earth. And so beating up the acorn is just going to make it rot and not turn into an oak. Like beating ourselves up. I do not know why we think that that's useful, but our brains continue to do it, right? I know it's not useful and I still do it for sure. And so I have this fun brain hack that I always teach that you don't even have to argue with your brain about the thought. Like we're out of milk. So like, yeah, we ran out of milk. Sorry. But my brain wants to make that mean I'm a terrible mom.
Yeah.
So I say we ran out of milk and I'm still a good mom.
Yeah.
Like daughter couldn't find where she was supposed to be at school this morning and the neighbor had to help her because I sent her off to walk to school by herself. Yeah. I walked with her yesterday. Like she felt confident. She knew what she was doing, but they got a little confused. And I am still a good mom. Like whatever it is that's going through our minds that we're supposedly making mean that we're a terrible mom. If we just cut that part out, that part's the lie. Like the circumstance is whatever it is, and we are still a good mom.
Yes.
Just to kind of retrain our brain a little bit, because we're not going to be able to take that thought away completely and believe it. Right.
Right. So, that's the key, right? Is to find something that's believable. And I love how you brought in and. I'm such a believer of and. Like, let's get rid of but, right? Yeah. Let's just get rid of that. And it's always and. Yeah. We can hold two things at the same time. Yeah. We can be a good mom and still be in the process of learning and growing and developing. And I mean, if I've thought about this a lot, is if the end goal is to get back to live with our heavenly parents and our Savior Jesus Christ, if that's the end goal, we were already there. So there's a greater purpose than even returning back. Yes, that is the goal, but there's a huge piece we're leaving out, and that is becoming like them. And that includes that 50-50, that the opposition in all things is what is going to refine us. And sometimes we are put in these families with little people, and then they turn into big people. And sometimes it's hard to show love. It's hard to show up our best selves, but what better lab to learn how to do that, to learn to become like the Savior. Yeah. And in these families. Yeah.
For sure. Because it's easy to be nice to people, and like feel love for people that you see every now and then, or, even your coworkers, you can keep on a happy face for so long. But the way you live under the same roof and you just let all your truths spill out all over that's where the rubber really meets the road. I just always love the thought that I'm messing them up in the perfect way. If I was a perfect mom, that would be a disservice to them because they're not perfect. Yeah. And they would hold themselves up to the expectation that they were raised by some perfect mom. My kids have that disservice for sure.
I guess we can all agree with that. Yeah, we are not the perfect mom, and that's exactly what they need.
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard to remember at the time, but
yeah.
It's one of those reassuring after the fact sort of thing. Yes. And practically, because I teach them how to make repairs. I teach them how to come back later and what it looks like to really feel sorry and to try to make it better, because they're, emoting all over each other all day. And I'm hanging out with toddlers all day. I'm in my toddler brain too. We're all just a big mess. And then come back later and apologize and love each other and whatever.
And that's such a huge piece to it. I think that is a big part to all of it, is the coming back around. I love that. So as you work with your clients, as you work with moms, what are some of the things you see that they really struggle with? Is it just they feel like a bad mom, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, that's kind of down underneath every model.
Yeah, at the underlying level. Right?
Yeah. So mostly people are like, oh, you're a parenting coach. Help me potty train. Help me get my kids to eat right. Help me get my kids off the screens, right? We always think we need to change our kids, right? Did you hear that in all of those? Like my kid won't use the toilet. My kid won't get off screens. My kid won't. We think the kid is the problem, right? And so, of course, in coaching, we find out and really have to swallow every time that we cannot control them. There's coaches of like, it always makes me laugh because it's like coaches that coach, teenagers or moms of teenagers or adult children or whatever. They're like, you're learning that you can't control your kids anymore. I'm like, did you not have toddlers? Like, I'm learning this already. I cannot control my kids. Like, I gave up that illusion a long time ago. The only person I can control is myself. And I'm perfectly aware that when I am losing it, it's because I'm trying to control them. And
Yes.
so take a step back and I control myself. And again, that models to them emotional
Yes.
maturity, right? And
Yeah.
because of course that's the other thing moms always want to know is like, "Ooh, I love this stuff. How do I teach my kids?"
Yeah.
I want my kids to be able to be emotionally mature because I can't do it myself.
Yeah.
So we always
And
bring it
because
back, bring
if
it
they figure it out, then we can feel better.
so that we feel better. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
feel better no matter what the chaos is going around us, no matter
Yeah.
what they're doing. And we will also feel terrible. Like we're not gonna, be superhuman. So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
both sides of the coin always, like you were
Yeah.
saying, being able to hold both things.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned one of the brain hacks you use is the
Yeah.
right?
And I am still a good mom.
Still a good mom. I love that. And those moms out there that are like me, we can still say that.
Yes.
And
And
I'm
you are still a
still a
good grandma. And you are still a good, yeah.
yeah, navigating those relationships with adult children can bring up that for you, for moms that have adult kids, that still rears its head.
Yeah. Well, because as soon as, again, you learn the coaching tools and then you're like, I want my kids to do this. You want to send your daughter-in-law to a life coach or something. But I want to send my mother-in-law to a life coach. It's all part of this managing
Yeah,
that we were talking about,
everybody
like
else.
learning from the relationships. And so nobody else needs the life. Well, feel free to refer your daughter-in-law to me.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, really, really seeing that whatever it is that's bothering you about somebody, it's probably triggering you because there's something there
Yeah.
for you to learn about yourself.
Mhm.
And to dig into that instead of being so hyper focused on everyone else's behavior. And if they just knew the model, then they wouldn't be so spiritual or like emotionally immature or whatever,
Yeah.
But if we're thinking that, then so are we.
Yeah.
We're an emotional childhood thinking.
Yeah, we're being very childish in that regard. Yeah, so true. Is there anything else that you see that you've noticed as you've worked with these young moms?
You touched on it briefly, blaming ourselves. Okay, so that goes with dropping the mom guilt, right? So guilt is useful. We don't actually drop the mom guilt. What we drop is the mom shame. So
Yeah.
it's okay to feel guilty if your value system says you don't want to be yelling and you're like losing your shiz all over your kids. Like you're going to feel guilty about that, which is okay. That's just the dissonance of who you are. You are a good person and you believe that what a good mom would do is not be like taking her emotions out on everyone around her. And so you're going to feel some guilt. That's fine. But when the guilt sours and turns into shame that there's something wrong with you, then that's just a lie because you are good at your core. That's who you are. And so the dissonance is good because it shows you this is not who I am.
Mhm.
But when you label yourself, that's another thing.
Yeah.
When you say I am angry or I am impatient or I am frustrated or whatever, those are lies because you are not those things. Those are just emotions. I am good. That's it. Like that's who I am. And you can elaborate on that, like I am a patient mom, but patience is a feeling and we kind of blow it up into like an identity thing, and I just really like to like just narrow my identity to good. Like God is good, I am good, it's all good. And then you can get more specific if you want to, but like for me, I can only swallow so much at a time. And so I'm still trying to digest this idea, right?
We're not even our roles.
Right.
If
Yes.
you really break it down, like I am a good mom is beautiful too, but at the essence, like you touched on, is I am good.
Yeah.
And I really like to even consider like God is love.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're love. And I think that we're here to learn how to choose love.
Yeah.
To choose to live in love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes we can get caught up with our roles. We label ourselves as by what we do and the emotions we feel, which will never serve us.
Which even is tricky with love, I found, because love is an emotion, right?
That's true.
I feel like I for sure love my kids. I'm not always feeling the emotion of love because I'm not always thinking thoughts that are lovely, right?
Yes.
And that's okay. and I
Yeah.
am still a good mom. So if
Yes.
I'm not feeling love all day, because that's absolutely impossible for a human being, I'm pretty sure, then that's okay. Like
Yeah.
that can be the goal. That's great.
Yeah.
But again, not to beat ourselves up when
Yeah.
we're not there.
And I loved how you like, I think guilt can be a springboard forward. It's
Yeah.
it's a way to create wanted change.
Mhm.
Again, when it sours and turns into
Shame.
shame,
Then
that
shame wants to hide. Shame plays small. Shame just hides up in her bed watching Netflix
yeah,
instead of feeding her kids something other than ramen. Like
yeah,
when I'm just feeling guilty that they should eat better, then maybe I'll look into like how I could do that. But if I'm just like, if I make it mean that I'm a terrible mom, which we intertwine with I'm a terrible person, right? We like take on that mom identity so tight that yeah, then I just want to hide. And I'm like, forget it, eat whatever we want, like go
yeah,
watch, just do it. I don't care,
yeah,
and then we prove to ourselves that we are a terrible mom.
yeah. And I guess for me, that's where when I break it down to I am love, it it is more about when I reflect on how I want to show up
Mhm.
in a situation. And that doesn't mean I'm always gonna, sometimes I act a certain way and I have to reflect, I have to redirect, right? I have to change course. And that doesn't make me less love,
Yeah.
but it just opens me up to the idea of like, okay, who do I want to be now? How do I want to treat my kids now moving
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah, that reminds me of another thing that I see a lot is, of course, the A line, right? That for ourselves. So one of the biggest things is we're just trying to change our kids' A line, right?
Yeah.
And the other one is ours, like I want to stop yelling or I want to stay more patient or whatever. All those things are action line. And if we
Yes.
don't have the thought feeling combination dialed in,
Right.
it's just pretending. Like sometimes we can actually do it, but that's
Yeah.
kind of like the willpower,
Yeah. And sooner or
and
later,
and that only runs out before the day runs out for
yeah,
sure, and
yeah,
especially by bedtime and your
yeah.
preschool is all asleep and the kids are berserk and you're done with that will.
Lost it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so getting the thought feeling combination dialed in is where it's at in coaching, as you know,
Yeah.
and not just focusing on like stopping doing something or starting doing.
Yeah. Because if you're only focused on, I don't want to yell anymore, I don't want to do this anymore, that's great, but it's not going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah. Plus your brain doesn't hear that don't. And so
Yeah.
when like, I'm not gonna yell, don't yell, don't yell, don't yell. All of a sudden you're yelling, your brain is like, what? Yell? Okay. And yeah, plus the
Yeah.
whole emotional, feeling the feelings through instead of acting them out,
Yes.
the tools.
Yes. I think for me, that's probably one of the bigger things that I have taken away is just, I grew up in an era, I believe that, and I don't know if it's similar for you, but feeling feelings was not really a thing.
No.
Right? It was like, just, okay, brush it off, move
Mhm.
on. We don't talk about
You're
things.
okay. You're okay.
Yeah, you're fine. And so I don't think I knew what it really meant to process an
Yeah.
emotion until I found life coaching. And it really, I think that's one of the most critical first steps, I think, is
Yeah.
because when we're in an elevated emotional state, we can't access any form of rational thinking.
Yeah. And when you're a mom with littles running around, you're in that fight or flight basically all
Yeah,
day.
all day
It's like
long.
being in the tiger's bin, like your brain literally thinks that they're tigers. Like they're just
Yeah.
tough. They're not tigers, but you're in fight or flight all the time. And so I
Yes.
have to like take bathroom breaks, close the door. They're like pounding on the door while I'm like processing some emotion, before I like
Yes.
to get back out there, And
Yes.
so, yeah, it's really important to
Yeah.
fix because as soon as we learn that our feelings come from our thoughts and we want to just change our thoughts so we can feel better.
Yeah.
But in the heat of the moment, all you can do is just feel. You've just got to feel them through. And then afterwards, you can go back and try to think of a thought that could be more useful in that situation. And it might help next time. But really, like the thoughts are pretty quick. Like it's going to take a long time to reach.
Rapid fire.
And so this good mom hack has actually really helped me way more than any of I used to call them Band-Aid thoughts,
Uh-huh.
like, oh, this is a thought I'm going to try next time, and
Right.
it kind of band-aids the situation.
Mhm.
But really, like, having a foundation of believing that I am a good mom, then like, what would a good mom do? And it's not like someday I'll be that elusive
Mm.
good mom and what would she do?
Yes.
But it's like, I already am.
Yeah.
So then I just do. Like, I
Yeah.
do things. All of a sudden my kids are eating something other than ramen
Yeah.
instead of like, like, and they still eat ramen sometimes, but I'm not beating myself up about it anymore. It's like, I just know that I am. And so there's not so much at stake. It's like every little thing I do or however they're behaving doesn't mean this catastrophic thing about me.
Yeah.
I think that we in the church, like, we learn that we're a child of God in primary, right? And we believe that, because we're young and we believe things that are true because we're closer to the veil or something.
Yeah.
And then we go into young women's. I'm a beloved daughter of heavenly parents, and we still kind of believe that, and still until we start making mistakes. And then all of a sudden we forgot everything we learned about the atonement and that that's the whole point of this life, right? And that Jesus is going to make it okay, and that it's not just, oh, it's okay. It's the point, like, it's the whole plan.
Yeah.
So when we start making it mean that we're a terrible person when we make mistakes, like, we've missed the whole point.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we can get out of like being a youth and even a young single adult unscathed, like, oh, I'm doing good on my own, like, yeah, sometimes I made a mistake. But then all of a sudden we're a mom and we completely lose our brains. And we're like, who is this monster? Like, I do not recognize this
Where
person.
did she come
I
from?
used to be a good person and now I'm a mom.
Yeah.
I'm a monster.
And all heck broke loose.
Yeah. And so whatever it is that does that for you, like, I feel like, sorry, this is another tangent, but I feel like one of the big shame points that like Satan uses on men is pornography, right? And shame wants to hide. And it's like a big thing that like men are all ashamed and they don't want to talk about it. Like, if you can crack that and talk to your buddies and be like, oh, you struggle with that too, like, open the conversation. There's life coaches that have opened this conversation and stuff. Then they get out of the shame and it's a lot easier to manage. I feel like the woman's big shame is like yelling at their kids or like, quote unquote, being a bad mom, whatever, whatever that looks like. And it's like, once we start talking about this, and we kind of do it a little bit with our friends, but we're kind of like, I don't know if she yells at her kids like I yell at mine, so I don't really want to admit it until she does. And so it's still kind of like, but if we can crack that open and be like, hey, we are all human, we all lose our minds, and it's okay, and it's part of the plan, and now what? Then we can like drop that mom shame and just understand that we're all just struggling, and then we're really there for each other. And for sure, with a life coach who doesn't have any of that judgment and stuff, can just hold the space for you to really work through it. With no shame. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that because I think for a long time, really, really not until that long ago, there was a part of me that believed that Christ was the backup plan.
Mm.
That we came to earth we know the story, we know the plan of salvation, right? We come to earth, we get a body, we choose the right, and then we go back and we live in heaven, right? We choose the right. And if we make a mistake, then the Savior will help atone for those sins because he suffered for the things we do wrong. And yes, that's true.
But it's not if, it's when.
Not if. It just was like, I just remember that lightning bolt of like, no, it's not if, it's totally when. And we are meant to. We are meant to struggle and make mistakes and learn and grow from them. That is the plan. It's not like everybody just hold out as long as they can to be perfect. And then if you trip, we got something, it just isn't. And I think that truth alone is just so, to me, it's just so, it feels so light. It's like, this just really isn't a heavy burden. It's actually a beautiful experience.
Yeah, because we put our burdens on him. His burden is light because he knows what to do with it. He's made it all possible.
Yeah, I love that. Well, is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap this up? I've loved this conversation. You have so much life and energy. And if anybody could see her, she has purple hair and it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful.
it's so many things. So I'll just tell you where you can find me to get all the other blah, blah, blahs, because I love to just blah, blah, blah. Well, first, actually, when you said one more thing, what I thought of was self-compassion. I feel like we haven't touched on that enough, because you can never touch on that enough, right? So with all the things, I mean, we kind of talked about it with not like layering on, like, oh, I know this stuff now, I'm supposed to be perfect, but really, like really, you cannot beat yourself up better. You can only self-compassion yourself to change. And so that's what I feel like believing that I'm a good mom kind of helps me do, is I have that compassion for myself, because I know that I am good, and I have the compassion for the humanity that I'm buried under, you know? So I'm David in the marble, you know, and Michelangelo. I like to say I'm Michelangelo as the life coach, as I'm like helping you chip away the limiting beliefs and all the cultural garbage that like you're blocked under. But yeah, so dropthewarlifecoach.com is my website.
Okay, Drop the War.
And I'm Drop the War Life Coach on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. I do one-on-one coaching. And right now my program is Believe That You Are a Good Mom, because everything else you want coaching on, I promise you, it fixes itself when you believe that you're a good mom. So you may bring like those specific circumstances of like when you lost it with your kid, and then we'll look at how that doesn't mean that you're a terrible mom, right? And anyway, and coach around that. But so dropthewarlifecoach.com/believe is a free masterclass about believing that you are a good mom.
Awesome.
And I'd love to share that with your listeners. I'm doing a webinar this week that this probably won't come out by then, but I'll probably do.
It probably won't.
But there's that masterclass that's already recorded.
Okay. Oh, awesome. So they can go there. I'll make sure that that's in the show notes and people can access that. I think that just the last conversation I had with a coach, you know, there was this, you know, that I don't want to take away from your listeners. And I just don't, I think that we're all here to just put good out there.
Yeah.
And people
rising tide lifts all ships.
Yes. We're just all rising the tide, and we're putting good out there. And if we can help one person be able to feel like they are enough, that they matter, and that they are a good mom, that they are a good person, it's worth it.
For sure.
To just share that message. So anyway, Emily, thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure to have you and get to
know. So fun.
And hopefully we could do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.